Welcome to the inaugural episode of this new podcast on Hong Kong and the situation here with me, Matthew CHAPPLE, and my co-host, former Legislative Councilor Eddie Chu Hoi-dick.
Hi, this is Eddie Chu. In our new podcast, we will discuss and analyze the historic events taking place right now in Hong Kong, together with a different expert guest each episode. This week, we are joined by former student leader and District Councilor Lester Shum. Welcome, Lester.
Hello.
Welcome, Lester. So, the topic for today is what just happened, or perhaps more appropriately, what the bleep just happened. Most people know that there's been dramatic negative change here over the last year or so since Hong Kong people rose up in defiance against the government's proposed extradition bill. Since then, much of the media attention and discussion has been on the violent clashes between police and young freedom-fighting protesters during the second half of 2019. Things have changed so quickly that it's easy to lose track of the details and to lose sight of the magnitude of these historic events. Just 6 months ago, back in June and July, there was a belief and a sense of optimism that pro-democracy politicians like Eddie and Lester could win a 35-seat controlling majority in Hong Kong's top legislative body, the Legislative Council, in elections planned for September. In July, the pro-democracy camp held overwhelmingly successful elections to select the best candidates for those September LegCo elections, in which more than 600,000 people turned out to vote. In the polling station I helped organise on Lamma Island, the voter turnout was 6 times what had been expected. The winners of these primary elections were the younger, more aggressive pro-democracy advocates like Lester and Eddie. However, shortly after, and perhaps in response to it, the LegCo elections planned for September were indefinitely postponed, supposedly due to the virus, and a new draconian national security law was rushed in. Many believe the goal of this new law is not to protect Hong Kong or the nation from external threats, like most national security laws, but rather to protect the Communist Party from being challenged or questioned by its own people here in Hong Kong. Then this month, 4 of the most moderate and mild pro-democracy legislative councillors who had chosen to stay on in the interim Legislative Council were disqualified by the National People's Congress, leading to all the remaining pro-democracy legislative councillors resigning en masse. So, in a few short months, we've gone from the possibility of the pro-democracy side winning control of the Hong Kong legislative system to them not participating in it at all. So, what happened? Let's now bring in our guest for today, Lester, to have a conversation with both Chu Hoi-dick and I about exactly that. So, Lester, what happened?
I think we have to know more about the background of Hong Kong political situation first. After the movement which embarked on 2019, I think the whole attitude from the Beijing government towards Hong Kong people have been completely changed. And then before we have enjoyed a certain freedom and then space to fight for our autonomy and then fight for our democracy. But after the movement in 2019, I think the whole situation worsened to a case that the Beijing government not only wants to tighten the control or tighten the grip towards Hong Kong people, they want to eliminate Hong Kong, and then they want to eliminate Hong Kong people because we pose a huge threat to the ruling of Communist Party, especially after 2019. Actually, the whole attitude from the international communities towards Beijing have changed drastically. And then we all know that Beijing is a threat, is a substantial threat towards democracy, not only in Hong Kong, not only in Asia, but towards the world. And then that's part of our what we have been fighting for, to be alert of the Chinese Communist Party. So that under these circumstances, we have received a draconian national security law, and then our election has been postponed or even cancelled indefinitely because they just will not allow us to take substantial political power from the Legislative Council to pose any more further threats to the Communist Party.
Now, both you and Eddie participated in the primary election, and I think Eddie got the most votes of anyone in the geographic constituencies, and you got the second highest number of votes in the super seat.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the prospect of the pro-democracy side winning 35 seats or more, do you believe that was really a possibility, and that was a trigger for the rapid pace of change since June, July, the national security law, the cancellation of the elections, or are all these things just coincident? Did we really have a chance to?
I can only say Benny Tai was very optimistic about the results, but I don't know whether we can win it, but we have to get a try to get the best result in response to Beijing's cruel ruling towards Hong Kong people. But I think the Communist Party won't allow it to happen, even if there was only 1% chance of succeeding it. They want to eliminate even the slightest chance of winning 35 plus.
Yeah. And the reason for the cancellation, of course, was the virus. But I've heard you say, Eddie, before that if the party knew that they could win the election, it would be held tomorrow.
Yeah, sure.
Well, it is, I think Matthew has given us a very good summary of the events, but it is important to have a correct framework in order to understand it. Most of the commentators before described Hong Kong as a semi-democratic system moving towards universal suffrage. But I think that is quite misleading depiction of the political reality. We are Hong Kong after the handover, in fact, under a so-called virtual liberal authoritarianism. Every right and every political platform we enjoy, like the district councils and the legislative council, are actually virtual rights that can be taken away anytime by a decision from the authoritarian rule. So the backbone is the CCP, is a dictatorship. That's why when every time we saw this kind of disqualification or cancellation of the election, I think people in Hong Kong and people of the world have very different perception or understanding. In Hong Kong, we knew before we have this 35 plus scheme, it is mobilization tactic. I think we knew beforehand that CCP will definitely not allow this to happen. Even we succeed in winning the election, this 35 plus majority will be broken up in the first months of the new term. And why we still want to have this 35 plus and the primary is because we have had enough of this pseudo liberal system put on the table to us. We want real democracy. We want real power. As Lester said, we pose a real threat to Communist Party with the support of most of the developed countries in the world last year, and that posed a real threat to CCP, together with the prospect of winning majority in the Legislative Council. And we knew that there will be retaliation from Beijing. We knew that if we break this power balance between us and CCP, then they will come up with draconian measures, new laws, and then to redesign the whole Hong Kong system. But Hong Kong people are still there to take on this fight. And so here are we right now, after we were so close to success, then it triggered retaliation from Beijing. And there is no what's next, because we have opened up a new episode of the democratic movement of Hong Kong, which is totally different from the last 23 years.